For this tutorial, you're going to use these two images. One of this girl standing inside the doorway of the prison, and the other one is going to be the texture of this water. So you can start by editing this first in Lightroom if you wish, or you can do this right here in PhotoPea. PhotoPea is going to look a lot like Photoshop, but the tools just work slightly differently. If you have Photoshop, of course, it's going to be easier for you, but PhotoPea is a really nice second. It is online, and it's just at photopea.com. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to crop both of these images to a 1:1, so they are square. Now on the top here, instead of being free, we're going to say a fixed ratio, and I want that to be 1:1, so it's square. And then I can move this up and down and choose which area that I want. And again, you can do this first in Lightroom if you're more comfortable with that. So a square there, and then I need to go to the other file and do the same thing. So in this one, you're going to see you're going to have to make a choice because you won't get exactly everything. I really wanted the top of this doorway, but if I go up that high, I lose her feet. So I have to decide exactly what I want. And I'm actually going to opt for the doorway because I think I can get the feet to blend into the other part. And again, check. Okay, so now I want to add this picture to the other one. So I am going to select all, which is Control A, and I'm going to copy, which is Control C. These are both here also under Edit. I'm going to go to the other picture and I'm going to paste this one in, which is Control V, as in victory. There we go. Oops, did it too many times. If you want to undo something, it's just Control Z. So now I want to change the size of this top picture. Over here, my layers, I can see both layers. So I'm going to go here to Edit and Transform. I'm going to transform the scale, and I'm going to shrink this down. Now it will get distorted if you don't hold down the Shift key. So while I'm still moving my mouse, I'm going to hold down the Shift key. It's going to keep it back in a perfect square. And I'm going to keep holding that Shift key while I let go with my mouse, and then I let go of the Shift key. I'm going to put this right here in the center. Now I'm holding that Shift key one more time, and I'm going to stretch it out a little bit larger. I actually want this a little bit bigger because I'm going to have the water flow into this ground and blend across these two things. All right, I like that size, so I hit the check mark to give it the OK. Now these pictures are still in color, and we want our overall effect to be black and white based on what my inspiration was. So one thing I can do is I can go over into my adjustments, and normally you would have them over here. But as you can see, your adjustments are not here in the same way they are in Photoshop, but they still exist. They either exist in this little cookie down here, or they also exist over here, and you can say Layer, New Adjustment Layer. All right, so for right now, I'm just going to go down here just because I know I'm in my layers. It helps me make sure I'm doing the right thing. And in this one, I want to go black and white. So I chose black and white, and you can see everything turned black and white because that layer is on top. Now I can still make some adjustments. Anything that was red will shift lighter and darker, so I can make a deeper black if I want to. And the same thing, I can move my color channels to make some adjustments within the picture if I choose to do that. And I really like that for the outside of this water. I want to change just the blues and cyans just a little bit. All right. So now I want to click back on layer 1. I'm going to edit that one. And inside this one, I want these edges to blend. So we're going to turn this into a mask. Now I know it's been a while since we have done masks, but we are going to review that. And the mask is also down here, and it is this square button with a hole in the middle. So more like a mask you put over your face, parts of it show through. That's exactly what we're doing. So I'm going to add a mask to this. And that mask is the white square. And on the mask, I can use my gradient tool or I can use my brush tool. So we're going to start with our brush tool. And my mask is white, so I'm going to make sure I have black here in front. If it's the wrong one, I can just click this little arrow and it'll switch back and forth. I want to be painting with black. So now that I'm here on the brush tool, painting with black, I want to do one last thing and go check on my brush. And I want to bring the hardness down, and that's going to give me a nice feathery edge. And I can make the size different. Now just remember, if I move my mouse over here, on your keyboard next to the letter P are those bracket keys, and that's also going to give you the option to make your tool larger or smaller. Those bracket keys next to the letter P. All right, so I have black selected, and I'm going to go in, and you're going to see it's going to fade and make that edge disappear. Now the water is fading into the ground. I'm also going to change my opacity or my flow. Think of the flow like, do I want it to come out like a fire hose, or do I want it to flow like a faucet? And the opacity is just how strong is that going to be. So I'm going to do that and just kind of soften some of these edges. And I'm definitely turning down the flow. It's just a little too intense. There we go. So I prefer to do this a little softer just so I can control it. And I just want to soften up these edges so that my person fades into the water here. Now, if I take away too much and I don't like what I've done, I can always bring it back by switching this back to white, and I can just paint that right back in, and all of those edges come back. Nothing disappears. And you can see over here in my mask what's happening. When I paint with black, it hides and it disappears. And when I paint with white, it brings it back. Okay, so I'm going to start with this. Now, one thing I notice is I don't like how bright the background is. This background is just a little too intense. My whites are too bright, so I'm going to change this water so it is a lot darker. So I'm going to go to this layer. Now, I can't go down here and add in another adjustment layer because it would stack another layer like this and affect everything. When I want to affect just one single layer, I go over here to Image and Adjustments. And I'm going to go into my levels. And you're going to see it did not make a levels layer here. It is attached to this one layer. So let's move it over. And I don't want these whites to be so bright, so I'm actually going to change my gray and just darken the whole picture just a little bit. Now this is my whites. If I move that, the whites actually get even brighter. But if I go to the one below, it turns these whites into grays. And that's what happens down here. It changes where the white is. So instead of being white, pure white, it changes the white into a gray. And I actually like that. So up here is overall how bright or dark is the entire picture. And down here, are my whites bright or are my whites gray? I can make my blacks a little darker up here. And something like this is what I want. I want a nice dark exterior and I want a bright interior. So I'm going to hit OK. And you're going to see it changed the actual layer. It did not stack a new one on top. Now the difference is I can't go back and undo this, right? I could just turn off my black and white, I'm back in color. But when I attach it by going Image Adjustments, it changes that layer, and that's not something you can undo. You can go back in your history, but you can't just turn it on and off. Okay, so now that I've done that, now I can go back in here into this mask and decide, do I want to make any changes? So I'm going to close that one out. I don't want to see that. There we go. So I can go finesse this. I can decide to bring back some of these edges if I want, because it's all going to fade into the black a little easier, so I can bring some of my picture back. If it's still too sharp, I can paint with the black and make sure it disappears. Just be careful that you are not on the image itself. If I'm on the image itself and I paint black, let me just show you what that looks like. It is going to paint over your image. It's like I'm painting with a black marker. So be careful you're not on the image. Make sure you're on the mask, and then that is just going to help erase certain things or bring certain things back. Okay, so you're going to make this adjustment. Make those choices if you want. See how far you're going to have this water fade into the ground so the two images are blending together. Our tricks here were to crop things, turn things into black and white by adding layer adjustments with the little cookie down here. I call it the cookie. And to also add a mask to a layer so that you can paint out some parts, hide and reveal different things. Remember, our mask is down here. It's this button to turn a layer into a mask.